Happy New Year, everyone. Hope you all had a good New Year. Hope everyone's having a good day. Hope everyone's having a good week. And hope everyone is settling in and preparing for a prosperous and successful 2021. Now, apologies for the slight delay in bringing you the continuation of the original XRP video. There are several reasons why I wanted to wait a little bit more to produce this video, or part two for that matter. And the first reason was obviously due to the holiday period. We've been working on implementing new updates, new features, all kinds of different stuff for the innovation markets community via the app. And also, as you guys know now, I am currently writing a major write-up which I will be dropping into the innovation markets app very soon once complete. As you guys know, this is turning into almost a university presentation in itself, so we're about 10,670 words deep at present, and I'm barely even scratched the surface yet on all of the topics I want to discuss regarding the current Bitcoin surge, regarding the correlations with Tether, regarding XRP, lawsuits, regulations, just a full crypto write-up to inform people who unfortunately are being guided in the wrong direction with this space, and following on from maximalist ideologies, following on from all of this rubbish that you're just seeing regurgitated across the internet. The goal here is to provide a voice of reasoning as much as possible. So with this video as well, what happened was, after I made the purchase for 450,000 XRP at around 23.1 cents, price went up nicely. We actually managed to achieve around $65,000 approximately in profit within almost a day or two, just from that single movement to the upside there, around $38,500. And what was very hilarious to see, you may have, if you've been following me on Twitter, you'd have seen how much I was trolling when the market pulled back down and dipped a little bit lower. I actually was going to do the video on that day, but then when the YouTube comments started coming in, it was very interesting to observe how much the YouTube comments on the original XRP buying video started shifting to just toxic, negative, very, very random things, very hateful, spiteful things. So I like monitoring these things because it gives me a very good insight into the overall psychology of the crypto participant and the crypto market overall. So it was very interesting to see when this initial buy was made and then price went into a profit, everyone was very happy. But then when price went down into a slight negative and drawdown, which you can see at the moment is insignificant as it only went down shortly and spiked back to break even, it was interesting to see how many comments were going, "Ha, it's fallen, you're in negative, like you FOMO'd, blah blah blah." People started saying you're coughing too much, and it really just shows the human psychology and I guess you could say the very short-term mindset and instant gratification that the majority of crypto participants desire when they are monitoring the market. So many people said, "I hope you sold. I hope you've got out. Is it margin? Blah blah blah." No, this is not margin. This is not leverage. This was $104,433 bought with no margin or leverage at the price of 0.23160, pretty much. So after the storm settled slightly, I thought it was a perfect time to make the video. Now that we've seen a bit of movement, prices returned back to normality, it was a good lesson to provide and a good lesson to go over in this video as well. So the first thing we really want to go over is the buy limit I have set here to hopefully acquire, in the worst case scenario, another 110,000 or so XRP. So we've got an order set here, what's worth around $14,364, and hopefully going for that final 100k buy-in on XRP. Now at present, it is currently holding the levels I stated quite nicely. I did give a final downside target of around 16 cents, which was just here. And the original order, as you would have seen from the YouTube community post, was actually at 16 cents. However, as we started approaching even closer, I decided to lower this even more to 13 cents, just in case we see some form of another manipulative spike to potentially spike price down, trigger another 100k of XRP into the market, take that off into cold storage. Happy days for everyone. Unfortunately, that has not come through just yet, but also on the other fortunate side is the fact prices returned very quickly, and we're going to be going over the other purpose of this video as well is the amount of panic, the amount of fear, and the amount of messages I've received saying, "Is it all over? for XRP? Is it dead? Is it finished? Is it the end of the road? And these comments really concern me, and it really does scare me that people get this worried, because it tells me they probably haven't really researched into the investment they've made. And it's very, very concerning when people are so scared over an investment you should be doing research into. You should understand what you are buying before purchasing. You wouldn't go to a shop and go and buy a drink that has a warning label on it and just go and drink it straight away. Or if there's word of mouth going around that a certain drink is very bad for you, you'd want to do your research first to find out whether those allegations are true or not. That's a very random example, but just to kind of put it in perspective. But the most important thing to notice here is the overall scale of the purchases that were made. And when everyone started getting very aggressive, and when everyone started laughing at me for going into drawdown, the main purpose of this video as well is to say I didn't buy at 23160 to then sell a few days or a week later. This is the major misconception of the majority of crypto participants, that desire for just more and more instantly. Money, 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 money. People said, well, if you knew it was going to fall lower, why didn't you sell when it pulled back up a little bit? And that's because it triggers another taxable event. And also, there's no point, because as I've said, this is a long-term play. And by playing this in a very smart way, I made this clear on Twitter. If I had simply just followed the principles of HODL, that stupid principle of HODL, where you never take profits off the table, I would have been back at my original entry price pretty much of 15.8 to 16 cents with 219,000 XRP. But instead, by taking profits and identifying where the market was potentially going to pull back to, I was able to return back to my break-even price pretty much, enter a little bit higher than normal, but now I'm roughly, if we zoom out, in the same sort of region of where the original purchase was in March 2020 anyway. But this time I have 450,000 XRP. So if you were to follow those ideologies of HODL and just hold on forever, you would have missed out on a huge opportunity to capitalize off your dollar cost average investments and increase your holdings. All I've done is simply taken profit and reinvested back. Because price spikes to this level, this is not FOMO. This is me also not pretending to be a man who knows 100% what will happen next. We never truly do. And that's why I said I'm willing to put the majority of the buys in here at a price I'm more than satisfied with, because if we zoom out from a long-term perspective, buying here in correlation to where price once was at $3.3, arguably is still obviously a risk. Every single investment in the world is. Nothing is guaranteed. But when it comes to a profitable risk to reward perspective, the reward is now significantly larger than the downside over here, which are obviously zeros there, and the upside potential of where we've reached prior. It's a win-win situation for me. I do not mind losing this money. This is money I can afford to lose. So therefore, no matter what quantity it is you are willing to lose, I have put in what I am willing to lose. So from a longer term perspective, this is, again, we can see from the arrow here that I've marked out, just to show you that even the sheer size of that arrow in comparison to where we are. We also want to go over to what is currently going on in the market right now regarding XRP, regarding BTC, and regarding some articles that I found as well, and kind of tying this all into what I said back in 2017. For those of you who are following me, you would know a lot about how the shift to this cashless society, to this new digital era, I said from 2020 to 2025, we should be seeing that agenda solidifying its way into our society. And it looks like, again, from the COVID aspect, how COVID's being dealt with, the new laws and the bills that are coming into play via COVID, the whole COVID handling plan, it looks like we are shifting closer. And whether we want to go down the route of whatever's going on with COVID, the overall management and handling of COVID is definitely aiding the push towards that cashless society agenda. Now, looking at how things are right now from a technical analysis perspective as well, we want to go over one more time. Trend line retested, going over the prediction for this level to come through. Now, first and foremost, I said this in the last video, but people misunderstood. I did not predict the SEC lawsuit in any way, shape or form. I use fundamentals to some aspects to dictate long-term growth, but when it comes to market manipulation like this, the first thing many comments said, we're not listening to you, it's rubbish. How dare you claim you predicted the SEC? No, I didn't. I absolutely did not. I predicted the price zone. And the key and beauty of technical analysis is it allows you to identify potential points in the market where price will either come back to, and this is what I'm teaching in the Innovation Markets app, alongside for free on the YouTube courses as well. And I'll be doing a lesson on wicks potentially this week to aid the exact movement and the analysis that has come through exactly as projected. But overall, the technical analysis allows you to understand where price could potentially go next without needing to know what fundamental impacts will cause price to go to that level. If we go to the monthly time frame, the clear identification of a pump and dump is the simple fact that price went from 22 cents up to almost 80 cents. And yet the following month, the SEC news comes out and dumps price even lower, wiping out the entire month's prior gains. If that is not a clear sign of manipulation and a pump and dump, then I don't know what is, but that is orchestration to me at the highest level. And by understanding that before the SEC news came out, bearing in mind, we were already down. So this came out on the 22nd, I believe, of December, the SEC news. We were at almost 80 cents anyway, and price at that point had already gone back to 40 cents. So we had already lost almost 50% of the valuation from here before the news. And I was already understanding from this point here, when I started taking profits, it doesn't matter where the top is, and to claim that you will time the top is just an outright lie. And I will never claim that I know 100%. Otherwise, I obviously would have made the extra 50,000 here and taken that profit off the table. But understanding this as well, not only have I now purchased back in with over double the initial holdings I invested over here, as you can see in the top, we've got 165 there, and then with the other buy, we got to around 219,000. I've also now placed another order, and this is the beauty of not only long-term investing, but also dollar cost averaging. If this drops lower, I will acquire another 110,000 XRP or so, which will lead me to around 600 and 560. My apologies, maths is all over the place today. So it would result in around 560,000 XRP averaged in from around 13 cents to 23 cents. And again, if we just zoom out from a longer term perspective, whilst those who were trying to mock me and trying to laugh for price going against me, this is a normal part of investing. And if you cannot handle the drawdown process, and if you actually have the belief that investing is an instant profitable venture, that's very likely the reason why the majority of these people are not successful in the markets and not actually making money. And you will notice that probably 95% of these participants do not make money in the markets, whether that's short term or long term, because they cannot focus on the long term view. If you're worrying about these little movements here, if I go to the 1 hour time frame, so you can see over here, I bought there, and instead of panicking and selling, I actually put an order in to buy more, to average in. This is the most crucial element of dollar cost averaging. You're averaging in your purchases to then withdraw and saturate these sales out of the market. It's the same way when I bought in March at 15 and 16 cents. There's 2 buys there, which I then split up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sells. I even scaled out with my profit taking as I do with my dollar cost averaging for entries. Now, understanding wicks and the cruciality of the 20 cents level, the 20 cents level that was marked out here, we came back, and from a daily perspective, this is where it should be a real eye-opener to everyone right now. BTC, we should easily go into that $31,500, $32,000 region. I think I covered this in the prior video as well. Ether has now tapped that $760 zone very nicely that I covered. And again, we could be seeing some short-term volatility towards around $840,000. So just keep your eyes peeled on that for a potential false break of this channel over here. Around 830, 840, that could be quite interesting to see. We've got LTC as well. Not too much to cover on this matter right now, but again, I still believe this could easily come back down quite significantly towards that $50 region if everything that commences in 2020, which is already commencing, comes into play. And as for Link, again, I still think this is coming down to $4-3. So let's just see how that plays out. But this is still looking incredibly bearish in my opinion, and I'm still sticking to the bias that this will potentially crumble its way down in synchronization with everything else. But continuing on and kind of understanding what's been covered in the prior video and why I'm trying to be a voice of reasoning here, and I don't want you guys to fall victim to these other people, because the people that are heavily emotional and the people that really express their emotions in anger, you can tell they're either over-invested or they are over-invested not just financially, but into a digital asset they likely have not researched very well. So understanding this level here, the wick, and again we'll be covering this in one of the course lessons as well, we have a pullback where the candle spiked through on the daily, and from a 4 or 1 hour perspective, you can see the spike through here was very threatening to many people. Of course, for me, it was an opportunity to buy more. For the long term, absolutely beautiful. But what you would have noticed is from this break lower, many people thought by breaking this low, we would never come back and return again. And this is why the longer term timeframes are very crucial. And right now isn't the best time to be actually trying to frequently trade in and out of positions. By focusing on higher timeframes and by focusing on all of that data that's captured within those larger candles, you are able to identify a much larger scale outlook on what's going on. Now, as you can see from this daily, when we did spike back down by the end of the day, and again, what a coincidence that this is very interesting as well. The month before, we saw the SEC news, which obviously would have been a shock to the market. Price pumps. This is clearly an orchestration. Now, what happens when price starts spiking towards almost I'm a bit annoyed I missed my 16 cents target that close. However, the fact is we went down to 17 cents. And what coincidentally happens when we've posted the first low, we come down, we wick fish down, we come to spike out and potentially stop hunt anyone that entered margin long positions. The minute we spiked and reached this 17 cents level, December the 29th, I believe it was, December the 29th, Ripple released their own statement on market participant activity. And let's just go over this very quickly, because there's a very big and important lesson to learn from this. And again, this is why I try to push the agenda of just sitting back, being emotionless and enjoying the show. Enjoy what is happening in front of you. You cannot control it. And trying to go with one narrative before seeing the full picture is the same in any aspect in life. It will not work out for you well in the long run. The public and press have only heard the story from the SEC side, and will be filing our response in a few weeks to address these unproven allegations against Ripple. Now, the minute that was mentioned, bang, we went from around 17 cents all the way back up to 25 cents in a heartbeat. We have now closed a daily candle. The wick went below, but the bodies closed within this region. So we haven't necessarily seen a severe breach of this support floor to dictate a potential move lower just yet. And I still have my eyes fixated on potentially coming back to 55, 60 cents. And then I will consider maybe taking some profits off the table. I have, of course, if I go to sell market, I have of course taken the XRP off the exchange now, just in case, you never know. But we'll be getting into the whole side of the exchange delistings in a second as well. But the problem is, in life, in society, and with the market overall, it's the same as cancel culture. It's the same as anything. When a story comes out and it's then pushed by the mainstream media, it's pushed by all these alleged so-called influencers, people take a story and run with it. They do not do the thought process and the calculation to go, well, hold on a minute, this is just one side of the story. But yet throughout this process, when we started breaching lower, the YouTube comments got more hateful. Online, on social media, I was watching people tweeting it's the end, it's the death, blah, 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 blah. But yet the minute the Ripple little document came out and the little write-up saying, you know, this is an attack on crypto in the United States. And they're saying, very specifically, there's a dangerous lack of regulatory clarity for crypto in the US. And they've said that the lawsuit has actually affected countless of innocent XRP retail holders with no connection to Ripple. So in terms of how bad the regulatory matters are in terms of the crypto space right now, I said this in 2017 again in the document I wrote up, we need regulation to thrive in this space. And unfortunately right now, with the likes of Bitcoin, and no one can convince me differently, and no one will ever be able to convince me differently, there is no justification for a $30,000 valuation for Bitcoin. I mentioned this in the podcast yesterday that I'd done in the Innovation Markets app, and I'm not going to go too much into depth on it, but we are still in the speculative stage of the cryptocurrency market. And unfortunately, what you are seeing right now is not the actual measurement of how useful or how successful BTC is in terms of its actual utility and adoption. Bitcoin was not destined to be a speculative asset. It was not destined to be a store of wealth. It was not destined to be the new hijacked vision of digital gold. It was intended to be a alternative to an electronic cash, a peer-to-peer electronic cash. The Satoshi vision, obviously I do not believe Satoshi is just one person or a single group of people. I believe it's much more complicated and twisted, and there's a much deeper, darker probably cause that comes from the Satoshi Nakamoto narrative. But in general, the original Satoshi vision, it wasn't even listed as decentralized within the white paper itself. Nowhere within that white paper does Satoshi mention the word decentralized, but yet the whole vision of Bitcoin has been hijacked, and people are continuously pushing this narrative of decentralization, overthrowing the governments, blah, 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 blah. But we can see in the present day, Bitcoin still doesn't really have a strong use case in our current society. It doesn't do what it needs to do. Scalability is a struggle, and we've seen the scalability issues cause the havocs of hard forks such as Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, Bitcoin Satoshi vision. So if that is allegedly Satoshi's vision, what the hell is the original Bitcoin core? What's happened to this? There is no, it's just changed, and people are forgetting this is not the purpose of Bitcoin, to be $30,000. And I truly believe Bitcoin is in one of the largest bubbles it could possibly be in right now. And regardless of what happens, the bubbles always pop. It's the same as the tech boom. If we go back to the tech boom, those who invested in the internet itself, or those who actually invested in the companies that were in some way, shape or form aiding the actual growth of the internet overall as an infrastructure, and if we compare that to the blockchain itself as a data ledger, the value lies within the blockchain capabilities itself. Now, back in 2017, when I wrote about the shift to a cashless society, I had no idea COVID was going to strike the world and this was all going to happen. Now we're seeing the push of CBDCs. And with CBDCs coming into play, it's very likely we're going to see a major drop-off in a lot of these digital coins that serve no real purpose in our society. Bitcoin is still used for criminal activity, and they are going to be using that to eventually take it down. We are already seeing delistings coming off exchanges. Now, let's just go to some articles that I've got here. Ripple executive says US laws on cryptos are vague. Future projects could be better than Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP. Now, good old David Schwartz. Again, I actually really appreciate one of the things he said here. I'm not a maximalist. I think the technology is still very, very immature. And one of the things that worries me, particularly about maximalists, is that they're kind of trying to get Bitcoin through and slam the door behind them, or get Ethereum through and slam the door behind them. And I wouldn't even want us to get XRP through and slam the door behind us, because the next project could be better. This is such an important mindset to possess in the cryptocurrency space, because unfortunately, it's a toxic battleground of Bitcoin is king, it's the ruler, it will continue rising. But as I tweeted yesterday, the speculative valuation of a digital coin does not determine its actual use case, its actual usability. We saw that in 2017. The prices rocketed for no reason, but Bitcoin, the network was clogged. It was taking days to send transactions. The fees were going into a crisis of their own. And today, it's no different. It's still cheaper for me to go to my bank right now and make a wire transfer to another recipient, and it will still get there quicker than Bitcoin will, and it will be cheaper. But people are looking at the prices, and they're so blinded by these current prices. And what they're not realizing is now, with this regulation and the regulatory clarity and the clampdowns that are coming into play, isn't it convenient that Bitcoin is pumping to its highest price possible before the news starts coming out? And if you combine this with what happened with XRP, there is probably a reason. Now, this is obviously just a theory, but the reason why I'm more confident in XRP than ever is because XRP has now pumped before some kind of negative news came out, and then it dumped immediately back to a very good buying opportunity. So XRP is currently back at the lows, whereas the majority and the remainder of the market is pumping to highs. Now, usually when the going gets good for too long, and I proved that with the profit taking from XRP, it's normally a sign you need to start considering getting out soon, because something arguably very big is going to happen. And I still stick to the possibility of Bitcoin going back to 10,000 and below, and easily towards 6,000, and it will shock many people. It could even go lower. We don't know that yet, but I do believe with the regulations that are coming into play now, things are going to get quite drastic. We've got the FCA banning the margin and leverage trading of crypto derivatives in the UK on the 6th of January. I believe on the 4th of January, what's the day today? In 2 days, I believe Craig Wright is going to trial regarding the whole matter of the Tulip Trust. I believe that's escalating further as well. And all of a sudden, all of these exchange delistings are all happening around the same date. So the FCA are clamping down. Again, I do not agree with the FCA's clampdowns, because if crypto is too dangerous for the retail trader, why are casinos still open? Why can you still gamble over football and horse racing? It's ridiculous, but there's obviously an agenda behind that, and I'm not quite sure what it is yet. But I believe 2021 is going to kickstart the major regulatory clampdown on cryptocurrencies, and there's 2 ways this is going to pan out. And this is why I'm invested in XRP, because one of my theories is, with XRP getting delisted off the exchanges at the lows, and with price pumping and now dumping, they are basically cutting us off, especially in the UK. The retail trader can no longer margin trade, but the institution still can. Now, understanding from an institutional perspective, you would obviously buy low and sell high. You wouldn't continue buying. And whatever you think these institutions are buying, a lot of it is happening off-chain anyway. And if we start seeing clampdowns of cryptocurrencies, this will of course cause price to drop. And what this could be right now is the institutions, the hedge funds, the banks, governments, whoever is invested, they could be maximizing their profits as much as possible because they understand something may be coming. And this is what is starting to piece together in my mind right now. Because when the profits start getting taken out of Bitcoin, wherever it may go to, there's one asset that's lying at the bottom right now that's respecting all of the levels, and also will be protected from potentially dumping lower due to the fact it's now been delisted off almost every exchange with a large amount of liquidity and volatility. So with XRP not being easily and readily available on the exchanges, how significantly can it be impacted in comparison to the rest of the market? Because there's not many facilities to now buy and sell it. You can transfer and send to different wallets, but the actual trading facility itself that will aid price fluctuations is being eradicated as this market is getting heavily overbought. And I don't care what anyone says, Bitcoin is junk, and it always will be. Yes, it works. Yes, blah, 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 blah. It does this, it does that. But no, in a real society, as you can see now, regulatory approval is what will push crypto to thrive. And well, as I said in 2017 again, if crypto and any project that does not abide by regulatory matters, does not abide and looking to work with banks or governments, is not going to thrive. They are not going to allow a heavy centralized, and yes, I said centralized, Bitcoin is as centralized as it gets. The majority of that hash rate is coming from China. And if you think about it, it's centralization within centralization. Just 3 entities alone essentially control 50% of the hash rate, and those 3 entities are also based in China. So essentially you've got 3 centralized entities operating in a centralized geographic location. That is a pretty big alarm sign to me. Looking at how this all pans forward with the introduction of CBDCs, let me find the other article. There's a few articles I wanted to mention as well. This we'll get to in a second. Bitrex to delist privacy coins Monero, Zcash and Dash in 2 weeks. Again, I said this in 2017. There is no such thing as privacy coins. We live in a surveillance world where government suppression is increasing by the day. And we are witnessing that with COVID. We are witnessing that with the tier 4 lockdowns and whatever is going on around the world. The governments remain in control, and they are now under scrutiny by regulators because privacy coins, guys, how do you think dark web markets get busted? Your IP addresses are still easily attainable via your cryptocurrency transactions. There is no such thing as true privacy and true decentralization within the cryptocurrency market. It is a buzzword, and it has been hijacked because Satoshi used the word decentralization every now and then, but he never used it in the white paper because the sole purpose of Bitcoin was to be an efficient method of payment. And at its present stage, it is still clunky, it's still slow, it's still not scalable. And when it comes to scaling, there's difficulties that come with that. So the majority of that power is currently being retained in China, which isn't necessarily a threat because obviously there is no real gain to a 51% attack, and it's costly. It's not worth it. But there is more money in controlling the majority of the hash rate to obviously aid the block reward, to give it to yourself. But more importantly, when you have that kind of power, that's when you fork off to Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV and rinse and repeat the process. And with all of the drama and the lack of efficiency that Bitcoin or the Bitcoin network still possesses, how could this physically be implemented into society? And even if it is, even in a long shot that everything gets pushed into society, they're going to have to abide by regulatory guidelines. And if you are stuck in that bubble, that false reality that they've manipulated you to believe, that you can actually bypass and overthrow the governments with privacy coins and bitcoins, you're in for a very big surprise very soon. And these regulatory clampdowns are just the beginning of what is due to come. This was the 22nd article. I believe there was one more. Again, Ripple CTO reveals his crypto holdings, XRP and Bitcoin are his biggest positions. And again, it just shows that you do not need to be a maximalist. He actually says himself, and so does Brad Garlinghouse, that Ripple is heavily XRP, is decentralized, but Bitcoin, funnily enough, is centralized. They've said that themselves, and Brad actually said that recently. It caused a bit of uproar, blah, blah, blah. But overall, the man still holds BTC. So he obviously knows that price-wise, it's going to go up. But when we compare this to the tech boom, a lot of projects originally went up. I do not believe there is a valuation or a reasoning to justify this current price point. We know XRP needs to be higher, and the higher it goes, the more efficient it actually functions. And David Schwartz said that himself. He specifically said the higher the price is, the better the liquidity is for XRP to be utilized as a payment protocol. But as for Bitcoin, the higher it goes, the more the network seems to get congested, and the more problems seem to arise. It's still too costly in my eyes, and I don't see any need to be utilizing this in society. We need faster payments, and Bitcoin was meant to offer an alternative to a system that was destroyed by central authorities. But Bitcoin in itself is now centralized, and it's not providing really a better solution, because the banks are prehistoric and they're still providing a better, faster and cheaper service than Bitcoin. You could just use PayPal and it will still be cheaper. So just because you believe in it, just because you've invested in it, it doesn't mean it's a good investment. The price is going up, but this is just FOMO. There's no reason for it to be this expensive. The average person doesn't even have around $10,000, let alone $30,000, but this now costs $30,000 for one. And what I think we're going to be seeing is a major clampdown this year coming forward. I'm not scared at all. In fact, if it drops lower, even to 10 cents or so, I will probably buy more until I have almost 1 million XRP, if that's what it takes, on this particular side portfolio. I'm never going to disclose my actual holdings on my other portfolio, but for this one, I'm actually doing this journey with all of you to show you guys the process, how to remain emotionless, how to filter out all of the rubbish that's being spurred by people in this industry, because I don't think they really understand what could be going on in this space right now. And as for the SEC news, again, do not take one side of the story and run with it. Ripple have clearly said they are going to continue to operate and support all products and customers in the US and globally. The majority of their customers aren't in the US, and XRP volume is largely traded outside of the US. So obviously there's going to be a bit of a problem with the SEC. And if anything, this is going to push for better regulatory matters for the cryptocurrency space, which we need for crypto to thrive. But what that also means, and this is probably the most important take-home lesson of this video, it's not about making money. That's a byproduct of investing into a potential game-changing technology that will aid the implementation of CBDCs. And if we see CBDCs implemented, then guess what is at the bottom and could potentially be the next investment to pop off? It's one of the only ones that hasn't really seen significant growth in comparison to the rest of the market. And now we've got all this stuff going on. This is all to trick you. The SEC news, all this stuff, clear pump and dumps. We saw the pullback over there as well. It's orchestrated. But just understand, when this regulation begins to come into play from literally this week, this is where we're going to start seeing that a lot of these cryptocurrencies are not worth what they actually are currently valued at. And this is where you're going to realize that when regulation comes in, a lot of the projects you originally intended to invest in to revolutionize the world and overtake the governments and throw the power back to the people, you're going to get a very significant wake-up call. And I think it's good that people are remaining humble and people are remaining logical, and people are just remaining fairly open to the understanding that we are not taking over these banks or governments any soon. And the saying goes, if you can't beat them, join them. And I am sticking my money into the assets that are going to aid whatever this agenda is, whether it's an elite evil agenda, whether it's some kind of satanic agenda, whether it's an actual beneficial agenda for the people. All I know is that agenda is what is going forward, and I am going to bet my capital on those projects that are actually aiding and are likely going to get selected. They have proven already they can delist cryptos at the click of a finger. They can ban them in the click of a finger. China has already proven that. And what that should be to many of you is a major wake-up call that it doesn't mean it's more rare if they ban it. Granted, it may mean it serves its purpose and they're censoring it, but it doesn't mean it will have a use if it gets banned, because if it's not allowed to be used, it will then become increasingly difficult to actually find the supply and demand necessary to justify this price point in the first place. And even if it goes up to 100,000 per BTC, for example, if it starts getting regulated or banned and not allowed to be used, because remember, this was originally intended to be a threat to the existing system, but they are not going to allow a threat to the system by allegedly an unknown figure to suddenly just take over the world. No, they're going to go with something that is actually working, something that is actually in existence, and something that has some form of centralization in combination with decentralized technology. So I think what we're going to see this year is a major crash and a lot of altcoins dying off, and hopefully a major market correction that's going to humble a lot of people and make them realize that the going doesn't get good forever. Look at the tech boom. The majority of those projects that pioneered the tech boom, they're not here in the present day, but the internet still is, and it paves the way. And for me personally, by going into Ripple, by going into various other projects as well, and by investing in those that are aiding cryptocurrencies, by almost investing in specific blockchain technology itself, the ideologies of smart contracts, the payment protocols of Ripple and XRP, the Bitcoin blockchain itself can become beneficial. And with a cashless society that we're looking to push forward towards, and again, this will be covered in so much more depth in the book I'm writing up for all of you, which will be dropped in the app very soon. All of this is piecing together. What is the main benefit of using blockchain technology in a cashless society, with transactions being submitted on an open, transparent ledger? It eradicates tax avoidance, one of the biggest problems our societies currently face. And when you eradicate cash, which is easy to launder money with, you now have transactions on an open, transparent ledger for all to see, which are very clearly still trackable. The world changes, and suddenly every single piece of data is stored securely, essentially in a decentralized manner, but the actual maintenance of the blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain in itself, is a centralized process. The mining pools themselves are essentially still a centralized process. You are, I guess you could say, the overall competitive nature of mining does almost improve the security of the Bitcoin network, but at the same time, no blockchain or no network that claims and manipulates people to believe it's decentralized should have just 3 entities and mining pools controlling 50% of the hash rate. That should not be the case in any realm or world that we live in. That should not be the case. But more importantly, to finish off this video, I just wanted to let you guys know my intentions, my buy order for another $14,500 approximately, to hopefully get another 110,000, 500,000 XRP. And in the worst case scenario, it goes into profit. But I'm actually starting to believe Ripple could be back at $1 very soon. And with all of this chaos that's going on and the regulatory clampdowns coming in, I'm glad I got positioned in here regardless. If I mark out this zone for you here, we can see we saw a major spike here before, reversal. We falsely broke through, rejected, came back, tapped this level, and then we pinged off to 80 cents. We've come back down precisely to this level once more. There is obviously a significant amount of liquidity in this region that has surged price back above this trend line as well. So now we're going to sit back. I'm well invested. I'm here for the long term. People that thought a little bit of drawdown phases me, absolutely not. And there is the proof. I am now looking to buy even more. Whether that goes to 16 cents and reverses and I market execute, or it spikes even lower and it triggers at 13 cents and I go into drawdown, or I end up buying at 10 to 11 cents. Whatever happens from here, I'm well positioned, I'm looking to buy more, and whatever happens in the long run, I have a very strong faith I'm in a comfortable position and I am well positioned, and those of you who have been following me are well positioned to potentially make a significant wealth shift moving forward. So we're going to see what happens for now, but more importantly, do not fear. This was anticipated in advance. We were waiting for these levels to come through, and it's almost no doubt in my mind that very soon we are going to be seeing an equilibrium returning with the price points of Bitcoin. So let's pay attention to these regulatory issues. We're seeing delistings, we're seeing SEC clampdowns, we're seeing FCA clampdowns. This is showing me a suppression on the crypto market is going to commence potentially this year, which will cause a very significant 70 to 80% drop, in particular on BTC. With the regulations that will come forward, those projects that abide by the regulatory guidelines will begin to thrive and begin to allow cryptocurrency to thrive within the mainstream audience and become adopted by the mainstream. So, as always, please make sure you've subscribed. Please make sure as well, leave a comment, guys. I was actually, no matter whether negative or positive on the prior video, I absolutely loved reading every single comment, and I do not have the time to go through every single one. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? It doesn't matter. We're not here to be at war with each other. We're not here to be like those other people that just push one agenda. I'm here to play devil's advocate. I'm here to provide both sides of the coin that many people will never provide for you. So let me know your thoughts. This is about engaging, interactions, discussions. Let me know what you want covered next, what you want to see more of, and hopefully I'll have that book for you all within the Innovation Markets app very soon as well. I'm going to get straight back to that now and hopefully have that done for you within a week or so.